What is up, ladies and dogs? Today, I'm going to tell you everything that happened during the dog and cat civil war, and we just won it today. We made the Federation of Feline sign an awful treaty. Now, I'm actually heading to the Dog Empire Communists because I am a traitor. Dog Empire Communists are right here. They didn't really expand much. But I'm going to show you everything that happened and why the Civil War happened in this video. So, the Dog Empire, we've kind of always been unstable because of the ideologies that are in the different areas. So, let me show you kind of what that was. See, right here where the Federation of Felines started and where the current the Federation of the Dog Republic is, which is what's left of them currently is, that is where fascism was the most. Now, there was also this area, these two areas right here, which were very much fascist, but those areas also had a little bit of democratic in there. So it was more of like, I'm going to put the grayish blue for that. It was more of like this fascist democracy. Now, in Lego Drew, they were very much democratic. But up here where the modern day communists were, it was very much communist. But it's more than just their modern day borders. It was very big. So those were the borders, kind of. But then there was another one, which was, this one's a little weird because this last one, it was very unique because in the areas where Free Lego Drew was, they actually had this kind of socialist democratic idea, and they wanted to be independent. But only Free Lego Drew in the end got independence. But so that was pretty much the political situation of the Dog Empire. Most of it was very much democratic. But so before the war, there was a lot of tension over Free Lego Drew as people in those areas basically became more democratic, and Free Lego Drew becoming the only area to have that socialist democratic idea. There was a lot of tension. Like, our armies were all over the border. But while we weren't watching, the Federation of Felines was actually rebelling in the province of the Northern Republic. They were actually rebelling. Now, it started very subtle, and we didn't notice it at first. It started right over there, and we didn't notice it first because it was so small. But over time, it was actually beating the police force. Or the police force was joining it. Which is why they were able to take over the province so easily. And then these two right here, which was what was left, pretty much it was over. It was easy. The Dog Empire had no idea, and the only part of the Dog Empire that knew was the fascist democratic which did have their own Federation of Felines revolt, but that one was, they lost the one in those areas. Now, the Federation of Felines had been mobilizing for a while, and the really last area of the Dog Empire in those provinces was small, and it was this kind of area right here which supported Free Lego Drew, and that was very, very small. So we decided to release Free Lego Drew, but we actually kept that instead. But with Free Lego Drew independent, the Federation of Felines saw that our troops were still over there, and they took that as an opportunity to attack us. Right here is where modern day H-Town is. I'm going to show you. That's where H-Town is, and the Federation of Felines targeted that first, but that's actually where we had the majority of our troops, not Lego Drew, because we had moved them prior when we started getting better relations with Lego Drew. But it was very easy for them to take over that small area because there were really no soldiers there. And these counties right there were also pretty easy. Free Lego Drew had not yet built an army and was dealing with an animatronic crisis, so they couldn't really do anything. Now, this was the first part of the Civil War, and this one actually ended in a loss. Now, the Dog Empire communists thought that the Federation of Felines would easily win, so they decided to join, and they pretty quickly took over some of the most important areas of the Dog Empire. And if you look right here, it looks like the Dog Empire's finished, right? Well, most of the troops were here in Lego Drew, so they hadn't really fought anyone. But when the troops actually got to the borders, they started pushing them back a lot. They very quickly separated the Federation of Felines armies. And the communists were pretty easy to finish because nobody really liked them in those areas. And the Federation of Felines surrendered. So they were pretty much annexed by the Dog Empire again. But their influence was still there. So they never technically were annexed. And the leader of the Federation of Felines, Big Dog, was actually the current governor of the provinces. And we thought he was on our side, but he was not. Which is why when he ran for, president, no, we didn't really know that he was the leader of the Federation of Felines. The communists did not tell us, as they were pretty mad about losing the war, and their leaders were being punished. But the Dog Empire we thought that because the Federation of Felines lost the first war, we wouldn't have any problems with them again. Well, we were wrong. The Dog Empire had just helped Free Lego Drew solve their animatronic crisis, and the territories of Lego Drew. They also got in a crisis, but the Dog Empire fixed that crisis. Now, the Federation of Felines didn't want to attack too early. They wanted to wait until another big crisis happened. And the Federation of Felines actually made a crisis. the the crisis that they ended up making was the crisis of H-Town, where the governor, who remember is the leader, said that that province right there of H-Town is actually part of the North Empire state. And it was very, very controversial. But the Dog Empire was dealing with two crises at once, because people in that state right there, in that county right there, wanted to rejoin the Dog Empire communists. So the Dog Empire, and the Lego Drew crisis. The Dog Empire, we had too many crises at once. So we made a compromise. So we gave this part right here to the province of the North Empire, but the communists, they were more independent, and there was a lot of protests. But when the war began, we caved in. But the Federation of Felines thought that the communists would still be their ally. Well, they were wrong, but they did start the war right after the crisis was resolved, which I feel like I should have given out the order then to send troops to the border when the crisis was happening, but because they were a province, I didn't think to, and I thought the governor just wanted more territory, and when he left office, I would just give it back to the province. But no, he kept it. But the troops that were right here are still in H-Town. But when the Second War began, the communists did not, in fact, give their alliance to the Federation, which makes sense because they lost the war and they were still kind of like mobilizing. But the Federation of Felines had a very quick advance up the Dog Empire, getting all the way up there, and that kind of split the Dog Empire in two. Now, there were still a lot of forces there, and H-Town became and is still one of the bloodiest battles in the entire Civil War. See, that H-Town was pretty much split in two. The Dog Empire forces on one side and the Federation forces on the other. But the Federation all started pushing in at the top to Dog Empire lines. And the Dog Empire, for every men we lose, for every one soldier we lose, we get 4 more. That's basically our thing. And those 4 more, they helped us a lot stay. Now, the general who was in charge of this had the idea of getting to the main area of H-Town, which was the most important area, which was where the city of H-Town was. And all of the troops got there. And we were pretty much blocked off from the rest of the empire because the borders were pretty much like against us. And the Dog Empire still had some areas left. It wasn't many. But these soldiers realized that there weren't that many over here, so some of them started pushing into Federation lines, which is kind of when the offensive stopped. because when the Federation found out, they quickly stopped it. But the Dog Empire surrendered then, and we were forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty, which no longer made us the Dog Empire. It made us the Federation of the Dog Republic, and we were pretty much a puppet government. Now, we were not the only one, but this was also when the Treaty of H-Town was created, which is when H-Town itself was created. It would be, one side would be the Federation, and the other side would be the nation of H-Town. Now, if you saw the videos that Terran made, you would know who he is. And he was the general during the battle of H-Town. He was the Terran was the one that led the Dog Empire soldiers to remain in H-Town. So he led H-Town pretty much. H-Town had an army only of 30 men because that's all Terran was left with by the end, because the rest were either captured, killed, or retired. The Dog Empire still had resistance fighters over here, and nobody really recognized the claim of that county to the Federation of Felines that they had. But the Federation of Fascists down here was pretty much like O'Drew. They were just a puppet of the Federation of Felines. Now, the Federation of Felines was not that big. But if you look at their puppets, which nobody really recognized, everybody just said they were a part of the Federation of Felines, except the Federation themselves. Nobody really recognized them. The Federation was pretty big at this time. They were the dominant power. But then the Federation realized they made too many enemies. The Dog Empire Communists, Lego Drew, H-Town, and what was left of the Dog Empire teamed up on them. Well, it kind of started when Terran found out about the order that I made to put uranium in suits. Yeah, I'm also very much wanted now because of that. But the Dog Empire Communists also did that, so that's why I'm going there. And, because I have good relations with their leader. But Terran, after he found out, he was kind of very much in exile, because H-Town wasn't fully independent yet. This was just the area where Dog Empire soldiers could stay and not go to jail. They were also kind of a Federation of Felines puppet. But Terran went in exile, and if you saw, he went to Riggs Crossing. Riggs Crossing is where the Civil War kicked off again. Riggs Crossing is the most important, and I mean important, train areas in the world. Well, in the Dog Empire, not in the world. Riggs Crossing pretty much connected the upper Dog Empire states to the lower ones. And it was right here by the 3. And it became one of the bloodiest battles. And it didn't stop. If you saw the video, they won, but they didn't stop. And the Lego Drew soldiers in that video, they were actually heading to Dog Empire Communists because they were going there to pretty much go at a celebration. But when their train blew up, nobody really knew until the war. But when Terran fought at Riggs Crossing, found the files about the uranium suit, that is kind of when everything sort of changed, because that made everyone turn against the Federation of Felines except their puppets. The Dog Empire communists had a grudge against the Federation of Felines for not letting them keep the state. They joined the war, and they had one of the most bloodiest fronts with the Dog Empire. Though they united pretty much as a commonwealth just for the war. It was more of a union, but this really showed that the Dog Empire communists were now fully independent. People in this county really much supported them, and the own military in that area just turned against the Federation of Felines, and it was very easy to take that. But these next two states, their influence had weakened over time, but the areas where they still had a lot of influence were not that big. It was pretty much just that. And this is where the offensive really stops. They made some gains over here because the Federation of Felines army had not yet realized the Dog Empire communists had declared war, because their leader, Big Dog, did not think about it, because he was too busy being excited that he won the election. Now, Riggs Crossing kind of was a distraction from the main front that H-Town had to face, because all of their allies weren't there. They were like alone for their allies, same thing as Lego Drew. But if they took Riggs Crossing, they would have a way to get to Lego Drew. Lego Drew, when they found out that their troops had been killed by the Federation, intentionally, they joined the war. They like immediately. And it was a bloodbath. The area that they took was very small, and it had nothing important. Lego Drew, Free Lego Drew, their main goal was to get all of Lego Drew and get them unified again. It probably was the hardest part for them, because they did not have a very big army, because they were small. But the Federation of Felines, when they realized what had happened, they absolutely started in the Federation of Fascists, they made an order that said any child or any person over the age of 4 has to enter the army. That was just the start of their war crimes. And people that in occupied Federation of Felines and Federation of Fascists, they did not know they were under Lego Drew now. So they pretty much just rebelled, and then it was the biggest thing, because when Lego Drew saw children fighting them, that is when, we did not know yet, because we had not yet gotten Riggs Crossing. Now, the Dog Empire resistance fighters, who were very small, had not yet gone very far. They had pretty much just that. because that was the most like mobilized area of the Dog Empire. But because it hadn't been that long since they surrendered, it had probably just been a few days. They didn't really make much territorial gains. But it was a really bloody front. And this was when Big Dog gave the order to use civilians as shields. Basically, they would take the soldiers into a city, and they would hide them in the city, and it would basically force the Dog Empire to shoot civilians because the soldiers would be blending in with the civilians. It was very bloody. The Dog Empire and the Dog Empire communists found a way to get around it. They would go into the city with tanks and like a lot of stuff, and then they would just shoot at the nearest building. They would shoot at the nearest building, and people would think, oh, I don't want to die. So they would point out the soldiers. And the Dog Empire would just point the tank at the building and say, tell us where the soldiers are, and nobody gets hurt. But the soldiers. Not that last part. That's how the Dog Empire communists got a lot of territory. But that didn't really work for the Dog Empire because the people over there, all of the people from the Dog Empire had been moved to Kitty City or Chihuahua City. So people in those areas were the Federation of Felines loyalists. So, yeah, it was still a bloody front. H-Town, they had another very, like, bloody front, but their front was actually kind of good compared to others because they were lucky and there weren't that many troops above them because, like, nobody thought that H-Town would actually go there. There were like two divisions. But yeah. Then when they realized, oh, H-Town is going to actually do that, then they started sending in troops. But it was already pretty much too late, and H-Town had already taken the majority. No. H-Town had already taken a lot. Well, it wasn't that much. But they still had taken a lot. And when the Federation of Felines saw that Riggs Crossing was going to be surrounded, that is when they did the most worst war crime. They gave the order to shoot at any train of any type, blow it up, and do like passenger train, a train that was on their own side, like any train, any single vehicle going in or out of Riggs Crossing had to be blown up. H-Town, Terran knew this. What you don't see is that Terran decided to trick them, and when the soldiers were in there, he blew up the train. Like, the soldiers were in there placing the bombs, and then he ordered one of his soldiers to shoot at the bombs, and it blew up the entire train off the track, and it killed a ton of soldiers. Now, the area of Riggs Crossing, it's not that big. It's around that big, which is pretty big, but it's not that huge. It was very dangerous because one side was controlled by H-Town and the rest is, Federation. But when this area that H-Town controlled up top got there, they were able to get a lot more troops down over here. But the Federation still had dominance over the area. So the Federation thought of a brilliant idea. It was not brilliant, but they thought making it so that if they use enough tanks, they will somehow manage to destroy the already destroyed H-Town. I meant Briggs Crossing. Cut that out. But it did not work the way they intended, and it actually ended in them losing most of Briggs Crossing. But they didn't lose all of Briggs Crossing because there was this little area right there. But you can see the front. But while that front is going on, Lego Drew, they are having a much more difficult time because they are seen as weird because, remember, the political party that Lego Drew had was no longer there. It was replaced by fascists. But this Lego Drew had the idea of encircling armies. That was what they loved, because that's pretty much how they got animatronics out. And it pretty much worked because they went where the soldiers weren't. And then they went all around. It works on the big army. But once Lego Drew, not the free one, once the Federation of Fascists found out about that, they began doing the same. But it kind of just stacked up until the entire armies were just one big encirclement. And then they realized they were getting nowhere, so they came up with a new idea of acting like they owned the territory, which worked. Free Lego Drew acted like they owned the territories, which worked for a little bit until the Federation of Fascists caught on. It's actually how this front turned from a stalemate into a very, very fast territorial gain. It wasn't that easy, but they did get a lot of territory because it was kind of like a Briggs Crossing thing, because there was territory right there. But once the soldiers found out that these weren't their fellow men, they didn't open fire because they realized that Free Lego Drew was a lot better than the Federation of Fascists, and they switched sides. The Federation of Felines realized that they can only win the war if they do one thing. If they go for the center and they go for H-Town. It was very risky. And they actually at first decided to cut off these H-Town troops because there were no troops guarding them. And very easily they cut them off right there, which then allowed them to obliterate the troops, capture them. Now, the Dog Empire and the Dog Empire Communists realized their fronts have to be moving forward. So the Dog Empire Communists did something a little interesting, which is it's payback, because the Federation of the Dog Empire Commonwealth, they had been doing friendly fire, which was basically shooting themselves, like another division shooting another division, and then turning on the communists. And then the communists just did the same thing, and they were not expecting it. They should have known. They really should have known. And that became one of the most used tactics during the Civil War, because of how effective it was and how much territorial gains the Dog Empire Communists actually made. Like, look, these are like all of the territories they had after that, which made the war kind of like are you on my side or not for the soldiers. But the key part of it is going into the camps when they're sleeping. So soldiers actually started staying awake and seeing if anybody was sneaking in, which worked very well. The Federation of Felines, but that also came at a cost. The Federation of Felines was losing men that were like awake, and well, they were losing men that had good sleep, which was very, very key to the victory here in the Federation of Fascists. Because once Free Lego Drew started using it on the Federation of Fascists, they were very quickly able to make some significant territorial gains, because the Federation of Fascists had no idea about the order to stay awake. But it was actually probably the most surprising front, like a sneak attack front, because nobody knew how much like Lego Drew was winning until like the battle for Riggs Crossing was won, because the part the Federation still had was the part where the trains still were, which was not easily taken, but it was completely surrounded. Just know that. The fronts did begin going faster again for H-Town once they did the new tactic, but still, Riggs Crossing, that exists. Now, it's kind of like a Stalingrad thing. They realized that there weren't troops around it, so they kind of just got the areas around it and then encircled it. But back to Lego Drew, because there weren't really much advancements with the Dog Empire and the Dog Empire Communists, because of how much like soldiers they had on each side. It was very easy for Free Lego Drew to gain an advantage on the Federation of Fascists, and the capital of the Federation of Fascists was like right in this province with Lego Table. And once Free Lego Drew took it, they immediately surrendered. The Federation of Felines realizes, and the main area where the Federation of Felines troops were right there, which kind of cut that off from the rest of the Federation, except this area. And then this enclave right here, that probably was where the longest stalemate was. But once the Dog Empire and the Dog Empire Communists started making some significant gains, because the goal was to just kill more soldiers than the other side can replace. It was very devastating. And with, you know, Rex Crossing, they were able to get more support. But the area where the trains were has still not yet been gained. They were left with not a lot. But when the general finally surrendered, that's when the troops started getting there. And that is when they cornered them. And the Dog Empire Communists and H-Town actually, their armies basically split into different areas, as Dog Empire Communists, their main goal was to get the people who they originated from. They wanted them back. The Dog Empire had a lot of control, but they weren't making that much advancements because the Dog Empire had really surrendered, and nobody considered them as the real Dog Empire. Everybody just considered them as resistance fighters, part of the Dog Empire Communists, or like just a rebellious area of the Federation of the Dog Empire. Now, this is when the Federation of Felines realized it was over. Yeah. Now, this tiny area in the Federation of the Dog Empire, there was like a ton of soldiers there, but they had lost Rex Crossing, which was their lifeline. This is when the soldiers started begging the generals for surrender because, like, they did not want to experience what happened at Stalingrad, which worked. And this is when the Federation of Felines really lost the war. Dog Empire and the Dog Empire Communists, they quickly defeated the rest of the Federation of Felines there, and now it was kind of like the main states that was left of the Federation. They were the main states of the Dog Empire. They're the most populous. Leodru was making significant territorial gains. The Dog Empire Communists spreaded their influence farther, while the Dog Empire itself just stood idle because they were trying to find me, and I was actually still in Chihuahua City. Now, H-Town had spent the most fighting, and they were actually the ones pushing them back the farthest. The Dog Empire Communists got no farther than that county before the Federation of Felines pushed the Federation so far back to their capital, Kitty City, which forced them to surrender. And this is what happened during the treaty. So the Federation of the Dog Empire lived on as the Federation of the Dog Republic, which is because we want an area for the cats to be. The Dog Empire Communists, they didn't really gain a whole lot. the Dog Empire also didn't really gain a whole lot. The only thing the Dog Empire Communists gained was that. But the Dog Empire, their own capital was in an enclave. Our own capital is in an enclave. And these are pretty much the modern day borders. Now, H-Town, because of Terran's military, like he's really powerful in the military, he was able to gain these states during the conference. And it is the borders we have right now, but the Dog Empire is still not fully unified. And it probably never will be. But there will be peace for now, at least. But H-Town looks like they're going to be the dominant power for a while. But in my opinion, I'm probably going to find out somehow to get back to the Dog Empire, because I'm not allowed there. Because currently, H-Town is looking for any sorts of evidence of the Dog Empire resistance fighters being the ones to make the uranium suits. But my goal is to, after that research thing is done, the Dog Empire will allow me to come back, and I will fight for reunification. But it's going to be very hard. But thank you for watching this episode, and this is Labrador, out.